minute shake up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. Is okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always
Thanks,
as simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. Today we are talking about sweat equity, how to build leadership through fitness. I have Kari Gearhart. She is the co-author of Reach. That's the title of the book, Reach, Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership. She's going to talk about that connection between physical discipline and leadership excellence. And I think it's a fascinating connection because if you think about it, if you're disciplined in your physical movement, chances are you're disciplined in the way that you approach life and everything in it. But Kari's going to talk about how the mental resilience that powers your fitness journey can also propel professional success. Ooh, try to say that one 3 times. So it's not just about getting fit. That's not what this conversation is about. It's about how getting fit is more of like a competitive advantage in the boardroom and beyond. So I'm going to bring Kari in and have her introduce herself. How you doing, Kari?
I'm doing great. So excited to have this conversation with you. It's my favorite topic, of course.
Well, of course. I mean, you did write a whole book about it. I hope you like talking about it. So you're in Naples, Florida right now? Is that correct?
I escaped the cold weather of the Northeast, yes. But we head back to Pennsylvania where I live tomorrow.
Hopefully you got rid of all the snow before you go back.
I
Right?
think it's gone. Yes, it's good.
Good. All right. So, Kari, you wrote this book, Reach, Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership. And I know that that has been a big platform for your career, just how you have always used your energy in fitness and wellness to actually transform your work as a leader and how you help leaders do that.
Yeah.
So, what do you think was that moment, if you will? I'm sure it wasn't just a moment, but how did you first realize that there was this connection between physical fitness and leadership?
Yeah, it's a question I get quite often, and it's interesting. In my early part of my career, I was in the healthcare industry as a registered dietitian, and then I went and pursued my exercise physiology background, and I knew a degree, and I knew that being fit, just healthy, gave me more energy to work. The long hours that I did in all the various jobs that I had. But quite frankly, it was more just the fitness part of giving me energy that it propelled me to get to the gym or do whatever sport I was doing at the time. But it was, maybe, I guess, 10 years ago, I sat next to a woman who happens to now be my co-author, Ashley Tappan, and we were introducing each other at the leadership conference. And we found out that we were both in the leadership space as far as careers at that point. I had moved on to the pharmaceutical industry and was leading training. And she was in the consultant type leadership role as well. And we found out we both did triathlons. And she said, I just finished a women's triathlon this past weekend. And I was just amazed about the women coming across the finish line, just so exuberant that they achieved something probably that they never thought they could. And she said, I got to thinking as I do leadership training, there's all these connections about what it takes to do something like a triathlon. And then also what it takes to be a leader in your organization and face all the, obstacles and being resilient and so forth. And we said, you know what? We could mentor women in this area. And of course, this applies to men. And we've done our program that we have called Fit to Lead for Men. But we were really interested in going after women because we happened to be sitting in a conference called the Healthcare Business Women's Association. Their whole vision and mission is to raise women up into a leadership role, like the C-suite, if you will. And we're like, okay, this is going to be a program. So we put our 2 heads together, looked at what we saw as the connections, and ran a program for several years called Fit to Lead, which the goal of that particular program was to build leadership skills while we were preparing these women to do a triathlon, a sprint distance triathlon, keeping in mind that the women who were signing up for this, many had never swam. Some didn't own a bike. Many of them were walking or running and so forth. So that wasn't the big leap. But putting all three of those into an event was like a kind of scary thing. And it was just so rewarding. And you just see those women complete the 6-month program, see all the connections, and then, of course, finish a triathlon, which was probably not on their wish list until we kind of proposed the idea to them. And they're some of our biggest advocates for this whole connection thing.
See, I think that's a fascinating story. First of all, just your journey and how you went from what you did into like education and transformation, and then that led to leadership. And I truly do think that when we find body confidence, that transforms into confidence in everyday life. So here you have these female leaders who are already powerhouses in their space, but who may have never, ever tapped into their physical capacities. And I meet women like that all the time, women who are just powerhouses in a boardroom, powerhouses at what they do, but they haven't really discovered what their body can do. And so when they put those two together, it's like magic happens because they are unstoppable, truly. And there is such a link between the discipline that it takes to do an event into the gym and the discipline that it takes to help people lead. It's also too, I think that I would venture to say that when I try a new physical endeavor, I need some self-compassion and some grace toward myself as I'm learning. I would think that that would transfer into leadership in the sense that you then remember, hey, I might be here now, but I remember what it was like to be here. And that lends itself to some self-compassion and grace, I would think, for leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. We had women who were at all levels of leadership in their organizations, and they all benefited. And what was wonderful also is these natural, because they were a group, and that's another thing. And I know we might talk about your network and your connections and so forth, and how important that is, not only in your career, but also when you're taking on any kind of fitness goal. But we had all levels, junior level individuals in organizations to most senior vice president type levels, and they were all benefiting. Some were reflective back, who were those VPs, and going, oh, I guess I've done some of these things and didn't realize how this, my sport was helping me. And the earlier in career were like, oh, wow, I can actually fit a workout into my busy life, and it's a win-win. And in fact, a quick story, Angie, is we had one woman in our program who so got this that she wanted to share it with her manager. And so when they were sitting down to talk about her performance review and her goals and so forth and her development plan, she introduced this Fit to Lead program as part of her development plan, because it was, and kind of sold him on the benefits of all the things she was doing, taking time, I wouldn't say away from the job, but taking time, making sure she got the workout in the morning or whatever, that was going to make her a better leader. And he was right behind her. She, convinced him, and he was coaching her. So it became this like natural support system that we thought was ingenious. It's like, you don't have to keep this on the side away from your work, make it part of your work.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think that transformational goals are transformational goals. They don't have to be directly related to the job. If you can transform your relationship with your family, if you can transform your relationship with your body, you're going to then transform your relationship with your work community. You can't separate all those things. So I think that's beautiful. So in your book, you and your co-author talk about grabbing the wheel for the journey that you want. How can someone apply that concept of like grabbing the wheel for their fitness routine and their professional goals simultaneously? I feel like one of those is what you just said, like sharing it with people, not keeping it like your dirty, dark secret. But what's your conceptualization of that?
Yeah, it is one of the most aha moments, I think, for a lot of the people who've either read the book or been part of the Fit to Lead program, which, by the way, they're kind of the Fit to Lead program came first, and then we put that program pretty much into a book and guided journal. But putting your whole life in context. So those of you on the listening to the podcast, if you're not familiar, you can just Google Wheel of Life or Wheel of Life inventory, and you'll see a wheel literally with 6 or 8 pieces, if you will, on the spokes, in all aspects of your life, looking at relationships, your career, money, fun, volunteering, spirituality, all those kinds of things. And putting all of what's going on in your life in context. And what we ask the women to do right up front is say, okay, this isn't about, and just to be clear, to use the wheel, you assess each of those elements of your life from a scale of 1 to 10. And so, of course, everyone's going, oh, I didn't get 10s all the way around, but the idea here is you can't get 10s everywhere. You can't be everything all the time. And so the key takeaways were, oh, okay, now I know why I'm a little crazy because I'm going after 10s. And then sometimes something has to give. So when we started thinking, okay, how are you going to fit this fitness routine into your life that's already very busy? They were thinking 2 things. One is, well, something's going to have to give. Maybe I spend a few less hours at work. Talk to my boss about spending more time so that I can be fit and bring that leadership development back into my job. Or, especially with women, and Angie, you might have this experience, is ask for help. Because a lot of women kind of do it all or feel like they have to do it all. They're givers. And I know I'm generalizing, but I think we probably all shake our head at that. So the wheel of life was really important to get started, to just look at all the facets of your life. What's your level of satisfaction? Where are you satisfied? Where are you not? And also decide, and this is a very important part, is what are you going to say no to now? So we literally in the book have a page devoted to what do I want to do, but just not now. And when I start checking off some of those other things, then I'm going to come back to that list and add it in. And that was another one of those aha moments. It's like, okay, something's got to give. I'm not superhuman. I hope that answers your question.
I like that a lot because I think that as driven women and men, I'm sure you are, but again, we're cultured to believe that if we're a 10 at work, we need to be a 10 at home. We just need to be a 10. Darn it, we're a 10. And we got to get it all right all the time. But to your point, there's no way you can be a 10 at everything. If you add something to your plate, something has to go. Because if something doesn't go, your health is going to go or your mental health is going to go. So it's really about evaluating and getting very transparent and clear on what your true values are. And if something has to go, that is okay, because what you're adding is even more remarkable. And so I think walking women through that experience of saying, no, you're not letting yourself down. You're gaining momentum in this area. And so this is going to make your life even more remarkable. But there's no possible way to be a 10 across the board while you're adding things in. That doesn't even conceptually make sense. And I'm not good at math. So there you go. So, a lot of leaders, they struggle with burnout. Obviously, a lot of trainers struggle with burnout. Wellness coaches, the one-on-one, whether you're a trainer or you're a wellness coach or you're a leader, the constantly running interference, meeting up with obstacles. So burnout's a big thing. How does your approach to fitness create this resilience rather than just, gosh darn it, keep pushing because you're going to get there and you know what your goal is?
Yeah. Well, and most of the people, maybe all the people listening to this podcast, know how important fitness is for just overall health and resiliency, and to take on more, if you will. But that's the challenge too. Is sometimes we think we're like super women or men, and we can take on more. So the one is just the reality check, and I'm going to go back to the wheel of life, and just acknowledge where you are relative to all the things that you need to manage in your life. And put some, boundaries on what you're going to take on and what you're going to pause and maybe put on the no list for now. I think the other key here is looking at maybe the fitness aspect, the time you spend in fitness, whether it's training for triathlon or yoga or whatever. For me, I found great efficiency actually when I was running. I'm walking now because of knees, age, but walking, swimming, getting away from devices. I got some of my best ideas and best ahas of things that I wanted to figure out on those swims and walking. So finding something that keeps you fit, but also gives you that mental, clarity, especially if you're walking in nature. I find that one of my most powerful ways of just opening your mind up and just getting away from some of the hectic things in life. And it just really does stimulate great thinking. The last thing I'll add, and if Ashley was joining us today, she would give this example, is that she incorporated fitness in with work. So whether it was a walking meeting, running maybe after work with an executive that she was working with and having, that conversation that maybe they couldn't have during work. The other thing that I do and I love is I have a good friend who's also an executive coach, and we probably about quarterly go on a walk in a park in Philadelphia. It's literally a 3-mile walk, and we spend 1.5 miles one way, and I coach her. She tells me about what's going on, and the 1.5 miles back to our cars and switch roles. So it's one of those, twofers, if you excuse the expression, of getting exercise, getting connection with someone who can listen to you and support you, and generating new and fresh ideas. So it's, again, it's not a separate thing. It's so instead of feeling like oh gosh, I'm going to have to fit in my fitness routine and I've got all these projects to do at work, is trying to look at opportunities where they can, kind of be one.
Well, and to your point, I mean, I think that's a great idea, because how many times do I sit at my desk and I know I'm getting tired? I know that my brain is not functioning anymore. I know I teach you to take a break, but I tell myself, you don't have time. Then sure enough, eventually I just crash and burn, about ready to face plant onto my laptop. So I go out and take a walk. I come back, I'm a new human, like a completely different person. Like, why didn't I do this an hour ago? Right? It would have been so much better for me, so much better for my productivity. But you're right. It's not an either or. It's both. And you can go out, you can walk, you can have great talks. I actually do that virtually. I call my friends when I'm walking. That's how we catch up. And a lot of times we catch up about not just our personal lives, but our work life. And we give each other those, come on, that's a great idea. I think you should do that. So it is kind of mentorship. So I think that it can definitely be, you can combine the both and get the best of both worlds. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So, your book talks a lot about building a team. You need a team, and how those supportive relationships make all the difference. So tell me about that, because I think it's true. I know one thing. I have never run a triathlon or completely competed in a triathlon, mostly because I think I would drown like 5 seconds in. And, I know how some of them are in like the murky lake. And I'm like, but what if I go under and nobody knows? Because I've been told they swim right over you.
Oh, yeah.
First time I was told that, I was like, nope, I'm tapping out before I even go there. Not a goal on my bucket list. I do not want somebody swimming over my body. Yeah. So now that that's not a goal for me. Going back to the original question, what is that about the team to thrive kind of relationship?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with a story. When I was at one of these large companies, I was in charge of executive development, and there was a women's leadership program that I was in charge of. And they had selected women in the organization who were considered high potential and invested in their development. And we were sitting, actually it was up at Harvard with some professors there, and we had some executives come in and talk to them about, their growth as a leader and so forth. And we had the women in the audience. Now, keep in mind, these are all women who've been tapped on the shoulder and saying, you are performing at a level that we want to continue to support and help you rise in the organization. When they were asked how many of them had a sponsor, a mentor, a coach, and this was an audience of about 40 women, maybe 4 raised their hands. And that was one of those aha moments. And I went, oh my gosh, here are women who are already performing, probably heads down, working really hard, and they are not leveraging what I would call their drafting strategy. So if you think of the analogy with sports, right, swimming or biking, I think it's with biking, when they're in a peloton, the drafting, I think they can reduce the wind resistance to like 27% or something, which is significant, right, if you're racing. Now, of course, you can't draft swimming in a triathlon or in biking, but the point is that if you have someone kind of breaking the wind and helping reduce the resistance, you can get so much further faster with less stress and pressure and so forth. So here, all these women, back to the story, were not leveraging that. And again, a lot of ha-has in the audience. So we did devote in the book a rather significant section on doing some analysis of what is your support system like? And I want to emphasize again, or not again, but I want to emphasize it's not only about support you want, but we also ask the reader to think about who are you supporting, because it's very reciprocal. And important to be both ways, because I'm sure you have people you've mentored, Angie. It's just, it's so rewarding to see someone grow. I mean, what you're doing right now with this podcast is part of that too. But that, reciprocal relationship of having people supporting you and you supporting others is wonderful. And there's different kinds of relationships, but they both apply to professional and sport. So you think about, you need someone maybe to mentor you at work and in sport. Might be the same person. Your boss might be a triathlete, or someone who works out in the gym, lifts weights, and you have aspiration to do some strength training. So sometimes they are separate, but I think that's important to kind of put it in perspective. And it's kind of like the aha with the wheel of life, when we have our audience and our readers kind of do this whole inventory of who is in their network, where there's strong relationships, who's sponsoring them, who's coaching them, who's looking after them, who's representing them in a meeting when someone's talking about an opportunity that's coming up in the organization. Your name pops up because they know what you can do. Are you lifting your head up from the computer? I know you're pounding away, working, but are people seeing what you're doing and your value? So again, it goes both ways. Sometimes they're the same person, which is kind of like aha when people do this kind of inventory of their network. But you need that support for your fitness, and you need it for your professional life. And fitness, it can be people at work, and it can be in your social, personal life as well. It can be your family members who are for working mothers, taking their kids, right? The husband taking the kids to the park while you do the cycling training. We had one participant who finally asked her husband, "Can you just take the kids for this afternoon so I can get my bike ride in?" It's such a simple thing, right, Angie? But it was a game changer for her. She was able to get her fitness in and not stress about it.
Yeah, and it is. I do think mentorship is kind of a lost thing. Some people are really, really good at getting mentors and offering their mentorship, and some not so much. But I think it's something that we all need to be reminded of. And if we think about it as friends, my friends are like my mentors of life. Okay, but what about my mentors in a professional environment, and how profound that can be to have somebody being in your corner, but also so that you can pay back and do the same. So, Kari, I want to reintroduce you. So my name is Angie Miller, and this is Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm talking to Kari Gearhart, and we are basically talking about how fitness helps you to be a better leader, because Kari is co-author of Reach, Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership. So we're talking about sweat equity. How do you make your sweat work for you in a boardroom, not just at the gym? So, Kari, I'm kind of curious. What is maybe a surprise that you've had over the years that has maybe caused resistance from someone, where they've suggested that fitness, may or may not be able to improve their work in the boardroom? I mean, they get it. Okay, I get it, Kari. You want me to run a triathlon, but I don't really get how this translates to work. What's the most amount of resistance you've received?
I think the connection, when you start explaining it, people get it. But I think when they then look at themselves, they go, yeah, but you don't understand me, or I don't have the time, or you don't get my job. It's just, it's all consuming. Or the other side is, I'm not a gym rat. I don't like going to the gym. So the dialogue that has to follow is, one, you need to move. And one of the things we were careful about in the book is we didn't want to say that this is all about triathlons. I think there is some benefit to going after something that makes you feel a little uncomfortable, a stretch, because that's what grows your leadership, your confidence, your self-talk that says, if I can do that, then I can do, whatever it is. Maybe I'm holding myself back from at work. So it's typically the time. You don't know, you don't get me. It can't fit, or I'm not a gym rat, or I don't do triathlons. And so it's problem solving around what could you do or try, and find something you can do. And this is the big word, consistently. So it's not I'll do this for 6 weeks, and then I'm just doing it just to show that I can. And then, they lose interest, or they can't keep it up. So I think it's time, and probably just finding that right activity that they can do consistently, and that does give that benefit of all the things we're talking about, with all the strings attached of connectivity between fitness and leadership.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that it is just being able to put it into practice before they
Mhm.
really start to see and feel the transformation.
Yeah.
Because fitness changes the way your brain functions, it changes the way your emotions function. So you
Yeah.
have to put it into practice to really believe what the outcome will be. And I agree, consistency is the main thing. What can you do that you're going to want to do again and again?
Yeah.
And so, Kari, I kind of want to leave on one note here, and that is speaking of my next question, my answer would be that it would be walking. To me, walking is low hanging fruit. And like you, I used to run, not so much anymore because the knees and the hips don't really love me when I run,
Yeah.
but I love me when I walk.
Yeah.
And I love that I don't feel like I'm beating up my body, and my dog loves it, and everybody loves it because I get to listen to books and I feel like I am growing. I'm growing because I'm actually listening. I'm not breathing so hard that I can't even hear the book, literally, which used to be when I was running. One could say I needed to work on my breathing. But anyway, so if there was somebody who feels like their career has plateaued, what is one physical practice they could build tomorrow, or they could begin tomorrow, I should say, that's going to spark leadership? And if you were going to say walking and I already stole it, you can be like, Angie, yeah, that was what I was going to say.
Yeah, I go back to so I had actually one of our participants in the Fit to Lead program. She was one of the earlier ones. She was one of those who went across the finish line and said, if I can do that, I can ask for that promotion that I've been holding back on because I'm not sure they're going to think I'm qualified, blah, blah, blah. So I would say break the mold a little bit. If you're in that rut or you're kind of plateaued, is do something a little scary. Something maybe they're like, I wonder if I really can do that. Make sure you get a buddy or at least a cheerleader to get you to do it. And then when you get through that, I guarantee that you will feel like you'll have that same quote, if I can do that. I mean, so many of our participants come across that finish line when we were done with the Fit to Lead program and say, oh my gosh, I really, even of all the training, standing on that platform, jumping in the river with like 30 other people in a wave, getting batted around and finishing running across the, I did that. So I think sometimes it takes a little bit of, shake it up a little bit and do something a little crazy to show yourself that you can.
Okay, I like your answer way better because you're right. I know that there's not a right or wrong, but you're spot on. Because anytime I've ever, ever, ever done anything that I've never done before, I feel like I am just such a bad, you know what.
Mhm.
And it could be something that other people have done a million times over. But gosh, if I have never done it, I am like, oh yeah. And I am on a high for a long time. So I agree with you. Do something super uncomfortable, but get a mentor and get
Yes.
somebody to help you do it. Goodness, I hit something on my computer and lost y'all for a minute. I'm glad I'm still here. I think I'm still here. So Kari, just real quick before we sign off, your book. Can you tell them how to reach you or get a copy of your book?
Yes. Reach Using Fitness to Grow Your Leadership is on Amazon, so you can order that right now. And I have a website, The Performance Bridge, which is my organization that I'm a sole proprietor and offer training programs like Fit to Lead, along with my co-author, Ashley Tappan. So it's theperformancebridge.com.
All
And
right.
that's good. And LinkedIn. I'm happy to link in with anyone who kind of shares the same passion as I do. So
Yeah.
that's another way.
Well, I have your book and it's great. So thank you so much for joining us. And thanks to all of you out there for joining us on Strong Mind, Strong Body, sharing your passion, sharing your thoughts, and, giving me a shout out, sending me emails, letting me know what you want to talk about. We'll see you next week.